What's up, everybody? It's your boy King Pablo, and welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to talk about the Diddy trial. So Cassie Ventura took the stand today, and I have a couple of excerpts coming from ABC News that I'm going to read to you. The first one is Cassie Ventura describes participating in freak-offs to please Combs. Cassie Ventura testified that she did not remember how the term freak-off came about, but she recalls Sean Combs proposed a sexual encounter that he called voyeurism, where he would watch me in intercourse, sexual activity with another man, within the first year of their relationship. I just remember my stomach falling, just the nervousness. I think I was 22 at the time. I didn't have a concept to how that would be a turn-on, but I also felt a sense of responsibility, him sharing that with me. Ventura testified, I wanted to make him happy. Wow. In soft-spoken, sometimes halting testimony interrupted by deep breaths, Ventura said the freak-offs occurred so often that it eventually became a job for me to set them up. After the first one, Ventura said her willingness to participate changed. Pretty quickly over time, I knew it wasn't something I wanted to be doing, especially how frequently, but I was in love and wanted to make him happy, Ventura said. I didn't feel like I had much of a choice, didn't know what no could turn into. Ventura alleged violent arguments with Combs that she said would usually result in some physical abuse. He would bash my head in, knock me over, drag me, kick me, stomp me in the head when I was down, Ventura testified. How frequently was Sean physical with you during your relationship? Prosecutor Emily Johnson asked. Too frequently, Ventura replied. This is at 12:44. Cassie Ventura says Combs controlled her life, their relationship. Ventura told the jury Combs controlled a lot of her life, from her career to the way she dressed, and it just didn't feel like I had much to say in it. Being super young, naive, people pleaser, I didn't know if he would be upset enough to be violent or if he would write me off and not want to be with me at all, Ventura testified. If she refused Combs, Ventura said, it was always in the back of my mind that I would somehow be hurt. Over time, she said, there were blackmail materials. I think I was just really confused at the time and young, a new artist, just didn't know the lay of the land when it came to things like that. In my confusion, just kind of cried and ran off, Ventura testified. I just wasn't familiar with having an executive or anybody pay attention to me or be that forward at that point. Pretty naive, I would say. Through 17 years younger than Combs, Ventura said she wanted to be around Sean for the same reasons as everyone else at the time. He's just this exciting and entertaining, fun guy that just also happened to have my career in his hands. She testified that Combs introduced her to oral sex in a New York hotel room. He basically taught me how, she said. How did he introduce you to oral? Johnson asked. He gave me oral, Ventura responded. The two first had intercourse on a boat Combs had rented on a trip to Miami, Ventura testified. I became one of his girlfriends, Ventura said. Combs listened passively to Ventura's testimony as he sat at the defense table with his hands in his laps. Combs' family listened in the second row. Ventura's husband, Alex Fine, was also in the courtroom. This is at 1:15. Cassie Ventura says she began to experience a different side of Combs as the relationship progressed. As her relationship with Sean Combs continued, Cassie Ventura told the jury, I began to experience a different side of him, which was his abusive side, but there was still love there. She described worrying about Combs' moves, making the wrong face, and the next thing I knew, I was getting hit in the face, she testified. Members of Combs' security staff kept an eye on me, Ventura said, and Combs would constantly call if she ignored him. At the same time, Ventura said she would get insanely jealous when she saw Combs with other women. I was insanely jealous, but also super young. Didn't get it all. Young and jealous, she testified. I didn't get that he was him, as he would say. I'm Puff Daddy, and Puff Daddy has many women. Ventura described moving to Los Angeles and living in apartments Combs paid for, and what she described as the stomach and knots moments when he would drop by unannounced, not knowing if he was angry. Though Ventura's recording contract with Bad Boy recalled for 10 albums, she only released one. If you're not releasing music, you're not doing your job, so the career was stifled, Ventura said. Why did you not release another album during this time? Prosecutor Emily Johnson asked. You're asking me? Ventura asked in jest. Plainly, the freakouts became a job where there was no space to do anything else but to recover and just try to feel normal again. Damn. Ventura said the alleged sexual encounters with prostitutes typically lasted between anywhere from 36 to 48 to 72 hours. The longest one lasted 4 days. Damn, who is in there having sex for 4 days? Court is currently in lunch break. Ventura's testimony is expected to continue of the remainder of the day and beyond. Okay, 241. Cassie Ventura breaks down on witness stand amid freak-off's testimony. Cassie Ventura broke down on the witness stand as she described her participation in so-called freak-offs. Ventura said she had just turned 22 when Sean Combs first proposed the alleged marathon sex performances with male prostitutes that she said eventually became almost weekly. She said it would be impossible to remember participating in all of them. Damn, that many? The average length of a freak-off was 2 to 3 days, Ventura said, the entire time during which she was awake, fueled by ecstasy, Molly, and cocaine, and she was given to her by Combs. Wow. Who decided when a freak-off was over? Prosecutor Emily Johnson asked. Ultimately, that would be Sean, Ventura responded. Did you want to participate in every freak-off? Johnson asked. No, Ventura answered. I felt like it was all I was good for. It was disgusting. I felt humiliated. I didn't have the words for how horrible it really felt. If she refused to participate, Combs would be violent with me, according to Ventura. His look would just change over. He would become a different person, and I didn't know what was going to happen, Ventura said. When Johnson asked if there was any part of the freak-off that she enjoyed, Ventura began to sob. She grabbed a tissue and through tears said, I thought it was the only time I could get. I thought it was the only time I could get. What does that mean? The first freak-off occurred at one of the homes Combs was renting in Los Angeles, Ventura testified. The juror was shown a photo of the male escort who participated. Ventura said she did not remember his name. She said she wore really high platform shoes and a masquerade mask at the freak-off. Every freak-off was directed by Sean. He knew specifically where he wanted everyone to be. The lighting, Ventura said. So he was in there working the lights in the camera. Oh, my God. The case against Combs also involves those around him. Johnson asked Ventura about associates Tony Fletcher and Christina Coram and security guards named Fam and Uncle Paulie. Ventura testified that she recalled seeing guns in several of Combs' properties just laid out. She recalled an evening when she said one of Combs' employees allegedly told Combs that record executive Suge Knight was nearby. Combs and others then donned black clothing and guns, according to Ventura's testimony. I was crying, I was screaming, like, please don't do anything stupid, Ventura testified. Wow. So when he found out Suge was near, 305. Jurors see messages between Cassie Ventura and Sean Combs. Jurors are not seeing messages allegedly exchanged between Combs and Cassie Ventura beginning April 19, 2010, under the subject line, I really need to F. The message says it's from Pop Pop. He wanted me to have a nickname for him, Ventura said of Combs. He asked me what I call my grandfather. I said Pop Pop. The message's recipient is BJ, new name, new pen, which Ventura said were the initials of Combs' nickname for her baby girl. Ventura replied to the message, so who you gonna F? Want to call someone? She described the message as initiation of a freak-off. In other messages, Ventura said she tried to express her feelings about participating in freak-offs. In one reply allegedly from Combs that was shown in court, he told her to make it happen anyway. Wow. 315, Cassie Ventura describes messy scene after freak-offs. Cassie Ventura participated in freak-offs at nearly every one of Sean Combs' homes, and most frequently in hotels in New York, Miami, Los Angeles, Atlanta, Las Vegas, Ibiza, and Turks and Caicos, she told the jury. Damn, he had her freaking off everywhere. After a freak off, the room was pretty bad off, she said. Oil, candle wax all over the place. The candles were used for lighting along with studio-type lights that gave the room a reddish hue, she testified. The jury saw a photograph of Combs on a bed with a wad of cash in the room that was glowing with red light. Ventura said she remembered the smell in the room being super pungent from candles, body odor, and urine. Oh my God. Ventura said Combs liked participants' bodies to be glistening with baby oil. They would go through 10 large-sized bottles at a time, she testified. Ventura told the jury that the freakouts fulfilled Combs' alleged desire of voyeurism. She described in graphic detail what she said were disgusting acts. When the freakouts became more frequent, Ventura said she and Combs used an escort service to supply them with participants at locations across the country. Combs sat back in his chair listening to Ventura's testimony with his mother and children sitting in the second row. Why are those kids there listening to this? Especially those girls. Okay, this one is Cassie Ventura testifies about binder of escorts for freakouts use drugs as buffer. During her continuing testimony, Cassie Ventura flipped through the pages of a 3-ring binder that contained photographs of the male escorts she said were hired for freakouts. She said she remembered their names, Dave, Daniel, Jules, Johnny, and one guy known as the Punisher. The men she said she was made to have sex with for prolonged sessions while Combs watched and masturbated. Some of the men she said she encountered in one city, some of them traveled to meet Combs and Ventura in multiple cities, she testified. Ventura said the escorts were paid in cash for their participation up to $6,000. Ventura said Combs wanted her to evaluate the men to make sure they were not police officers. I learned that this whole situation was not legal, she said, prompting an objection from the defense and an instruction to the jury from the judge to disregard the remark. Ventura was soft-spoken on the witness stand as she recounted her alleged sexual experiences with Combs. The men allegedly involved the disgusting acts in which she said she took part of. The drugs that she said were a part of all of it, too. How many freakouts did you use drugs at? Prosecutor Emily Johnson asked. All of them, Ventura replied. I couldn't imagine doing all of that without some sort of buffer or a way not to feel it, which was emotionless or sex with a stranger I didn't want to be having sex with. How did you know how far in advance to take drugs, Johnson asked. Ventura asked, I would ask. Who would you ask, said Johnson. Sean, Ventura replied. Okay, then we have, Cassie Ventura recounts her perspective of 2016 video showing Combs attacking her in the hotel. Cassie Ventura concluded her first day of dramatic, graphic, and emotional testimony by recalling the time she said she tried to leave a freak-off before it was over, returning jurors to a visceral piece of evidence. There's an instance in Los Angeles where it got violent and I chose to leave, Ventura said, referring to the March 2016 incident at the Intercontinental Hotel in Century City, depicted on video shown to jurors Monday and today. There was a lot of drinking, a lot of partying. I'm not sure what happened, but in the middle of it, I got hit by Sean and got a black eye, Ventura said. When I chose to leave, I grabbed what I could and got out, and Sean followed me into the hallway by the elevators, grabbed me, tried to drag me back in the room, Ventura said. The video was played again for the jury. That's me, Ventura said, referring to the footage. Ventura said she made it to the elevators when the next thing I knew, I was just thrown to the ground. Ventura said Combs grabbed her by her back of the hoodie and threw her down. She told the jury that Combs had previously thrown her to the ground on multiple occasions, too many to count, she said. Wow. Earlier, Ventura described how degrading the freak-offs became. The idea of objectifying me was tossed around like it was nothing, putting me in these compromising positions with strangers, she said. She said that Combs insisted on recording the sessions, which she said made me feel insane because it was humiliating and disgusting. Never wanted anyone to see me like that. Testimony had ended for the day. Ventura will return tomorrow on the witness stand. Wow. That is a lot. We got a video clip they want to get into, then I'll come back to my commentary.
Our witness Cassie Ventura taking the stand today in a New York courtroom in the sex trafficking and racketeering trial of Sean Diddy Combs. This trial's marked the first time Ventura and Combs are seeing one another in person since their 2018 split. Federal prosecutors claim Combs used lies, drugs, threats, and violence to coerce his ex-girlfriend into sexual encounters with male prostitutes. Ventura said the alleged sexual encounters typically lasted between 36 to 72 hours, the longest one lasting 4 days. Ventura is currently married and pregnant with her third child. She told the jury today about how the hip-hop mogul controlled her life and their relationship, describing the alleged physical abuse, saying, quote, "He would bash my head, knock me over, drag me, kick me, stomp me in the head when I was down." Combs has pleaded not guilty to all 5 charges he's facing, including racketeering conspiracy, sex trafficking by force, and transportation to engage in prostitution. A warning for our viewers, this story may contain accounts, descriptions, visual content of actual or alleged events that some viewers may find disturbing. So for more now, let's bring in ABC's Rena Roy live from outside the courtroom, along with ABC News legal contributor and trial attorney Brian Buckmeyer. Rena, we will begin with you. Cassie Ventura, of course, on the stand most of the day. She's talking in graphic detail at times about her participation in these freak-offs. So what did we learn so far today?
Yeah, Trevor, very graphic indeed. I can tell you that I got a chance to listen to her testimony inside court here behind us, and she was emotional. She broke down into tears at one point when she talked about participating in those freak-offs. She says that she was just 22 years old, had just turned 22 when Combs first proposed to her those drug-fueled sex marathons with escorts. She says eventually, though, they became almost weekly, and that they lasted on average, as you said, about 2 to 3 days, the longest one 4 days, and that she stayed awake by drugs that she says Combs gave to her, including ecstasy, cocaine, and Molly. She testified that those freak-offs made her feel dirty and worthless, but that she felt like she did not have a choice but to participate because she says Combs would become violent with her. As you pointed out, she says that he would bash her in the head, kick and drag her, and that she didn't know what would happen if she didn't do what he wanted her to do. She told the jury that she tried to express her feelings about participating, but in at least one text message shown to the jury, Combs told her to make it happen anyway. Trevor?
Brian, given how emotional and explicit all this testimony is, what kind of strategy do you think we might see from the defense attorneys in cross-examination?
So I think the defense is going to try to move away from the emotion and some of the more explicit terminology that we're seeing in this case and try to go for a much more logical argument that they're making, that Sean Combs participated in domestic violence, allegations that would rightfully so be attributed to state charges, but that there was no racketeering conspiracy. There was no sex trafficking. It was domestic violence for domestic violence sake, based on jealousy, infidelity, and just anger. And so I think that's the angle they're going to take. But some of the testimony, as Rena pointed out, and just how Cassie is on the stand, that's going to be a very hard argument to distinguish between the different types of force and how they were used.
So, Rena, Diddy is there in court. He's watching all this testimony from his ex-girlfriend. There's also many of his own family members there. Did we see any kind of reaction from Diddy today?
Right. For the most part, he appears to be pretty focused on Cassie Ventura, his ex-girlfriend. He is listening intently. At one point, we saw him scribble down some notes and speak to his attorney, but other times he appears to be more passive with his hands in his lap at the defense table with not really a certain kind of expression on his face. She, on the other hand, has not appeared to look at him once since she took the stand. She has looked at her husband, who is inside court, to support her. Remember, this is the first time that Combs and Ventura are seeing each other face to face since 2018, so you can imagine how this might feel for both of them.
Brian, how do you imagine this might land with the jury hearing all of this extensive testimony of this nature?
So I think at this point with direct examination, without anyone coming up and crossing Cassie, I think the jury is looking at Sean Combs, and I was in court this morning to see some of those looks with disgust, with disdain, to think about how one individual can do this to another in this way. And so I think it's going to be a high hill or even a mountain for the defense to kind of walk this case to the jury to suggest that, yes, Sean Combs, as Tenny Garrigo said in opening statements, has done some indefensible things, but it's a matter of what he's being charged with and what he did. A very difficult distinction, because I think earlier on in her testimony, it seemed much more about domestic violence. Now we're starting to see the allegations and some of the facts that bleed into that sex trafficking by force, fraud, and coercion, and that enterprise, that criminal enterprise that the government alleged is surrounding Sean Combs' inner circle. Because when she looked at some of those photos of the security guards, the chief of staff, at least for me, as I sat in that courtroom, I could hear the tone of her voice change. I can see her body language change, and you can see that she had some very particular feelings of maybe even fear in describing some of these individuals. And I think that's really proven the case for the government.
Brian Buckmeyer and Rena Roy, both with that in-court perspective. Thank you both.
All right, and we're back. So I was on the Neighborhood Talk, and I saw from the Inner City Press X account, they put some more testimony from Cassie, and they were tweeting it. And I'm going to read some of that to you. First one is, AUSA, what happened after the escort? What would happen after the escort finished on you? Ventura said Sean would want to put it on his body in the next room. AUSA, did you do that? Ventura said, I did. AUSA, where? Ventura said, usually on his nipples. AUSA, did you want to do that? Ventura says, no. That is so disgusting. So you want the escorts to come, then come on her, then rub it on your nipples. Oh my God, he's disgusting. Okay, here's another one. AUSA, how did you feel? Ventura said, I was an object, being heavily objectified by men. Sometimes he would watch by FaceTime. AUSA, were some sessions recorded on your devices? Ventura said, because they were there. AUSA, if you saw them on your device, what would you do? Ventura said, I would delete them. AUSA, why? Ventura says, they were disgusting. I never wanted anyone to see them. AUSA, were Sean's devices used sometimes? Ventura says, yes, I asked him to delete them. AUSA, did he? She said, I don't know. I think I had one more in here that I wanted to share. Yes. AUSA, what was his lifestyle like? Ventura said he had all these assistants. He could get things done. He traveled quite a bit. AUSA, what's this photo? Ventura says, Sean and I at a strip club in New York like 2007 or 2008 Halloween. AUSA, how did Sean moods vary day to day? They didn't put what she said after that. AUSA, when it swung, could you describe it? Anger, zoning out. AUSA, how did it impact you? Ventura said, greatly. The next thing I knew, I was getting hit in the face. There was also psychological abuse. He'll tell me to watch my mouth, change my face. AUSA, how would he keep tabs on you? Ventura says, we didn't live far apart. He sent the security to come find me or a trusted assistant. AUSA, like who? David James, Christina Quorum. AUSA, was your relationship exclusive? Ventura says no. AUSA, did you see other men? Ventura says yes. AUSA, did Sean see other women? Ventura says yes. He said, I am Puff Daddy. I was insanely jealous. AUSA, did you move to LA with him? Ventura says yes. He wanted to be close to his kids who were there. Is that the last one? Yeah, that is the last one. So we got a lot of information, more information than we already had about Cassie and what happened and their relationship. That motherfucker is disgusting as hell. That's all I pretty much have to say. But I don't know how they're going to find him guilty on this RICO charge. The prosecution is really going to have to plead their case with this RICO. I really don't see them getting a guilty verdict on the RICO, but I don't know. Maybe they have something else in their bag of tricks. Anyways, we're going to hear from Cassie again tomorrow and possibly another day or two. Please let's continue the conversation in the comments. This has been your boy King Pablo. Please like, comment, subscribe to the channel. Peace.